and hand the presentation over to our moderator. We have John Cross, Frank Condon, and Marcy Jaffe, and so I will hand it over to the moderator.
Well, this is John Cross. Can folks hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Well, just to present our group, Frank Condon is with the National RTAP group. He's the Director of Technology and has been the project lead on the GTFS Builder project. And then Marcy Jaffe, who's been involved for a number of years with technologies supporting transit systems. She's also online, and then there's that picture of me looking like I'm in a washroom in a gas station, but that's me. I am a program manager for Idaho DOT in the transit area. And Frank, was there any other comments you wanted to add regarding GTFS?
No, go ahead, John. Okay.
Well, our agenda for today is to go through a national RTAP in the cloud. This is one component. GTFS Builder is one component of a suite of applications that National RTAP provides under Frank's leadership. We'll get into more specific discussion about GTFS Builder, and Marcy will lead us through that. And then I'll talk just about a case study of other uses for GTFS, and in our case, it's 511 traveler information. And if you don't mind, I'll turn this over to Frank then to talk about National RTAP in the clouds.
Great, thank you, John. First, let me explain to you that National RTAP in the cloud, that's our branding for the software system that all of our web apps live in. In order to access any of the web apps, GTFS Builder is one of several web apps. You must create a cloud account for your organization, and you can also have user accounts within your portal. All of the web apps that we develop are free of charge for your agency. We have videos, documentation, email, and phone support to help you use each one of those web apps. And they're all hosted on the National RTAP website system. So, in summary, there's nothing for you guys to purchase, download, or maintain. All the web apps that I talk about today are free to use and hosted on our system. Here's some of the web apps that we've completed and a couple that we're still working on. Procurement Pro, this web application allows your agency to put in a procurement project, enter your procurement type, cost, and method, and our system will give you the required federal clauses, certifications, and documentation that you need to manage that project. We just released last week a state and local version of that application. So if your organization was to create an account in our system, you could enter your own procurement requirements, and your end user would be able to create a project and choose state requirements if you're a state agency, or if you're a local agency, your users could create a project and select local requirements, state requirements, and federal requirements, as long as your state is participating with this project. Your end user would get all the requirements for each one of those levels. The website builder allows your agency to have a website that you can add pages, change the look and feel of it. You can integrate your Google mapping, your GTFS map from Google. You can pull that right into your site. There's no limit to the size of your website or how many pages you can use. GTFS Builder, Matthew will talk about that. The resource library, we released that this winter. This allows your website, whether you're using our website builder tool or you have your own website, you can take some code that we've created, put it in your website, and your end users will be able to search, download, and order items from your library, but that library is also connected to the National RTAP library and any other transit agency in the country that is using this tool. They can search from your website. They can search their library as well. So we're truly creating a national database of resources that each organization can contribute to. The calendar, this is a module that plugs into your website. Again, whether you're using our website builder tool to manage your website or you have your own website, you can plug in some code into a page on your website and it has a calendar. You go into the National RTAP in the Cloud portal. You can enter events into that calendar, and they will be displayed on your public website. Communication Manager, this is an email management or a listserv management tool where folks can sign up on your website to receive email communications from your agency. You log into your portal. You're able to send emails by groups or by topic. You can see everybody that's subscribed. People can unsubscribe to the various lists that you create. Again, we're currently working on that module and hope to have that released before summer. Dynamic Forms. This module allows your agency to create web-based forms that end users can fill out. You can email it to them, like a survey. You can put the form on a web page within your site, and users can complete this form, and the data is stored inside of your portal where you can export it into an Excel file. And you can create as many forms as you want. It has drag and drop features where you can move fields around and by using your mouse. And this tool will be coming out by summer as well. And again, all of these tools are hosted and managed within the National RTAP in the Cloud system. Once you've created your portal and you log in, you'll have a home page and you'll see the various web apps. And as we release the different web apps, you'll see a little Access Dashboard link underneath that web app where it takes you into the features so that you can manage these various tools. The GTFS Builder, again, this is one of the web apps, and Marcy will be taking over from here. Good afternoon and welcome, Marcy.
Thank you, Frank, John, and Amber. I'm excited to give you a feel for, we're going to do a bit of a live demonstration of the GTFS Builder. And for those of you who are not familiar, it's the tool that allows for online trip planning and much more. And today we'll be looking at the partnerships that also come forward using our tools. Our next summary is for you to know and look at the requirements. We're not asking you to buy the newest version of Excel, but we are hoping you have a version from 1997. We're not going to be training you on how to use Excel skills, but often when people are using our GTFS Builder tools, they're excited to learn new skills, but the basic skills must come first. You'll need to be able to run macros on your version of Excel, as well as download and run Google Earth. If you haven't downloaded Google Earth, our Excel tools will not work for you. The last is that Google supplies a series of validation tools, and those are required for you to move forward and bring your data live, so you'll need to have permission to download those tools. The approach that we've taken is to examine an existing trip, as shown on your screen, and we'll give you a little more information about that. But from this dissected summary of what a trip looks like, if you were only going to choose possibly a route type, and now you get a LRT system coming into your community, and you no longer have bus service, all you'll need to look at is the tab that's got the orange color, route type, and then go in to that routes tab and modify your route type. We'll be going through this a little bit, but this is our roadmap and my dissected GTFS approach, so that if you only need to think about one thing at a time, this is a way to do that. We're now going into the live demonstration, and I believe that you should be able to see my screen. And what we'll start with is that sample trip that we had a few minutes ago. Someone will confirm that we are good to go looking at a sample trip in Google Maps?
No.
Not quite yet. So I'll go back and share my content.
There you go.
Okay, thank you so much, Amber.
You're welcome.
So now we have the sample trip that we saw in our dissected trip live at Google Maps. And for those of you who haven't seen some of the nifty features of just being able to reroute the trip, you can move your A and B around and see all kinds of variations jump out for you. Today we're not going to look into all of the opportunities with Google Maps, but this is where we're going with the data that we're creating. The other exciting news on this project is that we'll begin to see our neighboring systems within the map. And so our Res Racer from the Quinault Indian Nation now appears as a trip option because all of our partners are supplying the same data. And while that was not possible years ago when we weren't sharing the same data, your customer service team will be able to answer a question about getting the traveler to where they want to go, which may be beyond your service boundaries. So now let's go back and really dive in to the trip planning tools. And the way that we would get to our trip planning tools, as Frank explained, is that we would have an account with National RTAP in the cloud, and we've downloaded or requested permission to our GTFS Builder tools. So we have a way to download the tools directly from the cloud, and that includes our Excel spreadsheets, and I'll be able to show you those in the next few minutes. And once we've validated our tools, and we'll walk you through a bit of that, you'll upload and host your files here at National RTAP in the cloud. They're very gracious about offering us what we need, which is a place for this data to be supplied to Google for them to receive each week. The support center, I'm going to go into more detail on that later, but it looks like this, and you would come in and begin to see your how-to videos from the support center. So now let's begin looking at the Excel files, because that is what the tool offers. The Excel files in this tool set give you both some sample data as well as a blank, so you won't have to remove somebody else's data. The primary notes tab will have the navigation for the macros, and these are the buttons that will become live when you've enabled macros. And for the sample trip that we were looking at moments ago, if my organization organized my files with Excel, similar to what you see on the screen, that 7:30 a.m. trip heading down toward the Civic Center on a Saturday, and that trip that you're seeing in green, we would then go to our schedules workbook and create the details of that trip, all of the scheduled stops, which are at 7:30 and 7:35. The untimed or unscheduled stops are included in this network using this scheduled tab in this workbook. And this particular trip gets generated into the format that Google needs in the rows and columns that it is required for stop times and trips inside of our schedules workbook. So some of you may ask, well, why doesn't it show me time with the colon like normally shown in Excel? There's a very odd idiosyncrasy where Excel is being very helpful, and if we go past midnight, and many of your agencies may not be doing that, but for the agencies that will, we need to hold this data fixed and allow us to go to the 24th, 25th, 26th hour. So please don't spend your time trying to reformat what we've created here. It is how we need it to generate in the end. It will look properly coded for Google once we come to the end. This last little bit of data over here on the right, where the pickup type is marked as a 1. When one transit agency goes into another service area, it may be possible or required that they cannot pick up passengers in the other service area. Google does allow for that data to say don't allow for a pickup, but you can drop those passengers off, and there's no restriction. So we've got all of the elements creating a schedule here in the schedules workbook, and now we take it to the next level, which is each of the tabs in the import-export workbook that will generate the entire data set for Google. So some people have tried to short circuit and go right to here, and occasionally they hit some hiccups if they reformat the data. We encourage you to follow our process, and we'll even show you a checklist that will help you to do that. So within our Notes tab, it's always our navigation for these GTFS Builder tools that allow you to use the macros and see what services you'll need from this page. Ultimately, you're going to hit the button for exporting the GTFS files on this page, but if you're building shapes, you might be also hitting some of these other macros. This is the agency file. This is all the data that Google needs to know, your URL, possibly your phone number if you want to publish it, if you'd like more information about fairs. So each of these tabs, well, we're not going to go through all of them right now, are representing the data that Google requires. And so here is some sample data for you to work through. When we get to our stop times and trips, we're back at that same trip on the Saturday with the required ones that you saw earlier. And we've tested this file for shapes, and I'll be able to show you a little bit more with that as well. The trips tab is the association between that trip and its shape. And we felt that it might be helpful for you to know that you could modify this data inside of Google Earth. And so you would be double-clicking on this process. You'd say OK to this, come over to Google Earth, and decide to show all of the nodes along this route. And perhaps you needed a chance to edit the data within this, and you could edit your file. Double-click on the globe and bring that file back into Excel with your modification, put it into the Shapes tab, and you would have had an updated display of your mapping. The last two tabs relate to transfers and then the feed info. And we're continually updating these Excel workbooks so that the versions that Google supplies you, which are found here, updated a few weeks ago, are updated within our Excel workbooks. So let me go back and give you a few more hints on what we're looking at with regard to our tool set. This support center is critical to you. It allows you to see and use the roughly 50 videos and tools that explain each of the elements I went through in just a few moments. And we know you're going to need a little bit more time to think about those tools. I wanted to show you our checklist because the ability for your agency to pass pieces of this project from one person to another, you can show whose initials completed what task and that you're ready to go to the next step. And while it may feel like an ominously long process to get through, we've broken it out into each of the elements, and we're finding that most agencies can begin this process and complete what they need to do maybe in 3-4 hours per route, and then it starts to go more quickly as you move forward. And the most amount of time is spent gathering the latitude and longitude, and we even show you how to do that online if you're not able to go into the field or don't already have that data collected. The next piece of our puzzle that we think is interesting are the additional capacities for your data to be reused. There are, I don't know, hundreds or many different tools that are being created all the time when the data is shared publicly. So after you complete your work and you choose to share your data with web developers, here's an example with a company or a group called WalkScore. And I can choose in my commutes that if I'm going to the University of South Florida and I want to only be on the bus for 49 minutes, I can now see which apartments I could choose along various bus routes that would be available to me. If I decided that I'm really a bicycle commuter, it should show us as well the bike commute option. So there's our bike zone, our bus zone, and something you can play with. So you have a link to this particular set of data within WalkScore in hopes that you can be inspired toward building your GTFS data for what's moving forward in the future. And some people may want to live near a coffee shop. Within 10 minutes, add that to my features, and now I can see my coffee shops. The list will never end. We're very excited about that, and we want to be sure that you know there is a life beyond creating your data and just giving your travelers the trip planning features that they need. The last bit of news that may be helpful to you is that Google has created a good set of tools. One is called Schedule Viewer, and so this particular trip that we were working on for 7:30 in the morning can be seen here on this map. The gray or blue bubbles are stops that are not being used for this particular trip, but the yellow are live on this trip, and so if we needed to add a particular stop, we missed one, we're not seeing it, this would be the opportunity to scan this data, test this data, and make sure that it's working. So other trips inside of our sample trip toolset are displayed as well using the same approach of yellow and blue bubbles. This shows you the frequency of the routing there. So now I'd like to go back to our sharing of the PowerPoint presentation, because we'll be passing along to John and Amber. I'm not seeing that particular place where I thought I could make the switch, the arrow.
You did it.
I did. Okay, I'm now back with you. Thank you, and we are going to give you a quick process flow, something that you can look at again later. We suggest that you create your account, you add your GTFS builder. Once you've completed one full route, had it validated, you'd begin and send it up to Google, request a preview. That could take a few more weeks. It would give you some time to complete the routes, and once you've completed the routes, you would then have a chance to go live and request a pre-launch at that phase and eventually launch your data, which is the most exciting. So now we have a poll question. Amber, do you want to ask, or is it clear?
Sure. Has your transit agency tried to develop a GTF file for Google Transit or another application? And if you can use the little round buttons to cast your vote. And people are still voting. All right, I'm going to close the poll and show the results. It looks like 50% have not, and 43% have, and 6% are not sure.
What we found in this data set so far is we've had one agency with 52 routes become available in GTFS Builder. It's not to say we couldn't go to 60 or 100, but we are looking for this tool to be for smaller agencies that might not already have trip planning capabilities, or I should say export capabilities from some of their scheduling tools. I guess we have one more polling question.
And does your agency or agencies you work with store or manage their transit schedules in Excel? All right, I'm going to close the poll and show the results. And it looks like 43% have, 34% have not, and 21% do not know. Marcy?
So our hope with this presentation is that you'll recognize there are opportunities here for not only offering the trip planning, which is a very important feature, but the human services coordination, and maybe not all of you who are on this call today have been aware or participated in this additional process called human services coordination required by the FTA as another report and opportunity. Once we start looking at our service with our neighboring service, we see this tool as helping to identify gaps in your network, as well as ways to test can someone get to the food bank, a job opportunity, training sessions, colleges, at the times that those services are available to them. We also know that there are a variety of applications that are coming forward, and we showed you the one with apartment score at the walk score tool. There are a wide range of applications coming forward, so we've given you a few links there. And what's also exciting is what John will next show you from the state of Idaho, where GTFS is integrated in their 511 system. Next to you, John.
Great, thank you, Marcy, and thank you, Frank. And I think that the important point is that GTFS is a standard, it's a data standard out there, which I think provides a lot of incentive for these other types of applications to come forward, and I think gives all of you value in going through the effort to collect data and get it out there maybe initially for Google Transit or for one of these other applications, but knowing that it can be reused and get even more value for you. As we said, I'll talk about Idaho's experiences with GTFS and with our statewide 511 system, and I want to just give you a real short background of our journey on this. Our effort to collect transit data predates the availability of National RTAP's GTFS Builder, and our initial focus when we got started was to get our non-urban area providers onto Google Transit. And this was really early in the life of Google Transit, and I think the software was even kind of in a beta mode, as they say. But at that time, their primary focus was on transit in the larger urban area, and our focus again was on the rural side. So we started by contracting with a consultant to begin collecting and assembling by hand the GTFS data sets for our rural providers. And they led the process to initially gather and geocode all of the providers' bus stop locations and to collect the route and schedule data. But they realized early on that to be able to continue to get value from this, you have to have some means of having easy maintenance of the data. So they built a in-house tool that we began using to help with the initial entry and maintenance of the data files. So now we have all of our non-urban fixed route systems along with one intercity provider running live on Google Transit. To understand the next chapter in our story, you have to understand the nature of travel in Idaho, especially during the winter. And I know when we did our poll early on, I think we had 41% of the folks were from the southeastern part of the country. So unless you travel, you probably haven't seen this much snow. But this is showing on one of our state highways an avalanche across the road. The very tiny Volkswagen-looking vehicles out there are full-size snow plows trying to clear the road. So geographically, Idaho is on the western edge of the Rocky Mountains, and a large portion of the state's border adjoins the Continental Divide. So we have a large number of mountain passes on the roads throughout the state, and we get our fair share of winter snowstorms, as you can see in the picture. This typically results in road closures because of avalanches blocking the highways, or that weather makes the roads unsafe for travel. So how do we get the word out on what's happening? That this particular road, for example, is closed because of an avalanche. If you went back prior to the year 2000, there weren't too many choices, and I did some Wikipedia research. The Wikipedia trivia on 511 travel information is that prior to the year 2000, there were over 300 separate telephone numbers assigned to travel information systems across the country. So if you just kind of work out the numbers, that comes out to 6 or more different phone numbers you would call per state. So if you were wanting to travel throughout the state, you'd be doing a number of phone calls to try to figure out what was happening regarding your trip. On July 21st of that year, 2000, the Federal Communications Commission formally assigned 511 as a nationwide traveler information number. And on November 22nd of 5 years later, in 2005, Idaho instituted our own 511 weather information system as a telephone-only service through our Idaho State Police Dispatch Office. And the date is significant. November 22nd typically is about when we start our bad weather winter travel season. Because of the demand for real-time road condition information, 511 in Idaho, through that telephone solution, became instantly popular. But then with the advent of web technologies, our 511 system moved on to the internet, and our website became a one-stop shop, as they like to say, for traveler information. And usage went beyond the winter months, and our website began showing locations for construction projects and where there could be other delays for travelers. So the question, comes up, if we stay with the concept of one-stop shopping for traveler information, a logical next step is to how to include transit information. And as a data-driven system, including transit on 511 requires data on bus stop locations, routes, and schedules, and the data needs to be GIS-enabled or geocoded, meaning that the data has to show or should show latitudes and longitudes as needed. And just coincidentally, data within the GTFS standard includes data on bus stop locations, routes, and schedules, and the data is GIS enabled. So it becomes logical for us to consider use of GTFS data in driving our 511 travel information system for transit. This is my only fancy picture. I'm just trying to show another way to show a relationship between data, which is provided according to the GTFS standard, and two uses of that data. GTFS provides data to what I'm going to call an engine, a Google Transit engine, where the data is reprocessed and displayed through the Google Transit web interface. But you can show the same GTFS data on 511, but to display it properly on 511, it needs to be reprocessed through a different engine. In Idaho's case, we participate as part of a multi-state consortium to utilize a system called MODES, supported by a contractor working through the University of Iowa. And there's a number of, I think there's 20, 30 different states and communities and even some provinces who participate in that consortium. What MODES does, MODES is that blue box that takes the GTFS data fed to it and displays it on the same 511 interface as avalanches and road closures may appear. So we have the same GTFS data to start with, and that's what the green box is to the left. But we have one engine for Google Transit, different engine for 511, and we're reusing that data. So when our GTFS data is modified, the changes are reflected both in Google Transit and in Idaho's 511 system. So, and I encourage folks to go to our webpage. This is not a live demonstration as Marcy provided. This is just some static screenshots. But if you go to 511idaho.gov, this is what you'll see as the home page. There's a number of different specialized views you can select, and I'll see if my pointer is working here. So, there's one over here for truckers, one for mobile phones, and we have one for transit. So these are specialized views that people can see. You can also go to the main page and turn layers on to see different parts of the system. So what I'll do is I'll go to the, as if we had clicked on transit. This is what the interface then looks like. So we see a Google map, and what we see is kind of an outline of the state of Idaho, and the Continental Divide kind of runs down this long piece here. So these are where all those mountain passes are that I mentioned earlier. We see the various transit providers both as symbols on the map, and then you also see them over on the left-hand side here. What we'll do is pretend that we've clicked and we're drilling down on provider in the eastern part of the state over here, that is the red bus, and it's the Pocatello Regional Transit, the provider. This is the screen you're brought up into. It shows you a Google map, a street level map of the town, and once again, the table on the left shows the different routes that are available within that service area. And this lets me select one or more of the PRT's routes to display on the screen. So keep in mind, this is all being driven by GTFS data. So using that data and I clicked on the blue and red routes, you'll see, from GTFS, you'll see the data for bus stops and routes and schedules. And what's happening is our 511 engine, our mode software, is taking that and displaying that information on the screen. So where you see the blue or the red lines, it's showing the actual where the route goes within town. And then the white dots over here show the major time points or the major stops for the route. And the solid black dots show other stops that are out there. And you can see a couple bus symbols. One shows over here, one shows over there. You can kind of discern which way is the front of the bus and which is the back of the bus, so you know which way they're headed. And that information is based on where the schedule information from GTFS shows where the buses should be located for that point in time. Going to the next screen, this is showing the schedule information basically for a given stop. So if I have the live version up and I hover over one of these dots, right now I'm hovering over this one, it shows me that the stop is at Pole Line Inland Gate. It shows me where the vehicle is coming from, where it's going to, and it shows me a schedule. So it shows me the next 3 stops for that bus. And one feature of this is that our dispatchers for our transit providers have a tool that they can go ahead and, if the bus is not actually over here, for example, or over here, for example, at a given point, they can pull that bus back that's running late, and they pull it back to wherever it may actually be on the route. And then what that does, if you refresh this particular screen, where it says the word delayed, you will have new times appear that are just recalculations based on where or when the buses should arrive based on that delay in time. So hopefully that makes sense that it's doing that. I refer to this as Pseudo AVL, and if folks have been working with transit technologies, AVL is automated or automatic vehicle location. And it typically uses a radio device, GPS radio device in vehicles that communicate in real time with a base system back at the dispatch office that translates the coordinates and displays it on a screen. But what we're doing here I call Pseudo AVL. Remember that our route schedules in GTFS that were entered in tell us when buses are supposed to arrive at scheduled stops. And because we have the geocode, the latitude, longitudes, that really represents different bus stops as points in space. So it becomes a pretty straightforward math calculation to figure out where buses should be at between stops. And if we were refreshing the screen in real time, we would actually see the buses moving along the route. What I tried to show here was a representation of where the bus was at one instant, and then I took a screenshot a little bit later, and it shows that it's moved from over here down over to there. So again, it's doing that just based on the data that's in GTFS. However, there's plans afoot to use the AVL technology our buses are equipped with, build an interface through our 511 mode software, and display that information on the screen. And then there's no dispatcher action required to adjust the schedule. Just one last slide here. This is just reinforcing that this is a Google Map background, Google Map interface. So you can do everything else you can do with Google Maps. You can zoom in, zoom back. You can turn on satellite or hybrid views to show the town, and be able to navigate yourself around besides using the tool. So that's pretty much my presentation. We do have a poll here, and I'll turn this back over to Amber to see if she wants to lead us through these two questions.
Great. All right, so we have a poll question for you before we launch into allowing you to ask your questions of the presenters. So this question is for you as the new transit rider. What would be most important bit of information you would want to see from your 511 Transit Traveler Information System? And I'll leave the poll open just for a few more seconds. All right, I'm going to close the poll and show the results. And it looks like 63% indicated that when the next bus is scheduled to arrive, and 36% indicated the location of the nearest bus stop. So at this time, we'd like to open up the webinar for questions. So if you have a question, if you can type it in the Q&A drop-down manager, or if you'd like to ask your question directly on the telephone, you can press *8 on your telephone keypad. And Martin, I will hand the presentation over to you so you can moderate the questions.
Great. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. First of all, thank you, everyone. It was a really great presentation. As a person who uses GTFS and makes GTFS applications, I'm really impressed with what you've done. We have several questions, actually. Let me just start off with a question regarding if an agency already has a GTFS file completed and they were using other tools, can the GTFS builder be used to maintain their data in the future? I think this probably goes to Marcy.
Thank you, Martin. Yes, the GTFS builder tools have been created to allow you to read in an existing file and manage your file within the import-export tool. The function of the schedule builder, where you would be able to see your routes in that level of detail, you would have to go back and create on your own. And we have some hints for you to do that, but yes, you can go forward using GTFS builder.
And just to clarify, so do you guys have an importer that imports each of the text files into the respective tabs, or is that
That is correct, Martin. If the file is already created as a zip file, we have a quick macro that you click on, identify each of those folders and files that are in there, and it brings it into the Excel, and from then forward, you'd be able to manage your data.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. We have another question from Allegheny County. I think I'm pronouncing that, New York. The question is, can we capture and analyze utilization of access to the trip planner specific to our region? Furthermore, would we be able to capture unmet needs, i.e., a trip not able to be completed utilizing public transit due to the unavailability of transit service? So I guess it's kind of two questions. Can you analyze the utilization of access to trip planner? I'm not sure I fully understand Larry's question. Maybe I'm missing something, but I think he's wondering, are you able to evaluate who's accessing it and for what regions they're asking for?
Well, Larry, I will take this one. It's Marcy, and I am absolutely in your camp that it would be very helpful to our policymakers, possibly even National RTAP, the FTA, if we know that travelers and customer service are using the tools when they're at Google Maps. The best we can do right now is to identify that someone comes into your website, you've downloaded or created the tool for trip planning at your website, travelers use it and go over to Google Maps and finish planning their trip or see their trip plan results. At this point, Google has not offered, although many of us have asked the team at Google to give us some aggregate number on what's available for usage. And at this point, it's been no, we're not available to even purchase that as a service from Google. So we have to trust that people are using it. And while my suggestion is that we could see some activity from your website to the Trips Planner interface, if someone comes in directly to Google Maps to use the Trip Planner, or they're using it from a mobile device, at this point only Google will know it. I did see one survey last year summarizing all of 2011, and trip planning, not necessarily the trip planning using the GTFS data, but trip planning and getting directions off of Google Maps is one of the top 10 features that Google is finding useful to the entire set of people making inquiries at Google. So we're on their radar as being important, and for them to report back the data would be very helpful, but it is not yet happening. With your question regarding unmet needs, that is related to this first question, and unfortunately, because we can't get aggregate numbers on the overall usage, what we might be able to do in the interim is start to ask our travelers if they could give us some feedback on places they need to go at times in the day, and let them look at the trip plan options they have, which would now be displayed at Google Maps, and then give us feedback. But unfortunately, at this moment, we haven't been able to implore to Google how valuable it would be to see an unmet need, a trip that can't be planned in aggregate for locations and places and times, so that we could consider adjusting our routes.
Thank you, Marcy. Actually, I might want to add something a little bit afterwards about identifying unmet needs. But before we do that, I'm going to hand it over to Stephanie, who has someone on the phone from, I will probably butcher the name of New Mexico, Alamogordo, New Mexico. Stephanie, if you could help us with that.
Okay, Alamogordo, New Mexico, when you hear the tone, please feel free to speak and ask your question of the three presenters.
Yes, hi, this is Joe Harden in Alamogordo, New Mexico. As a small rural transit with like 5 fixed routes, what type of investment and time are we looking at to generate these files and get online? And how simple is it for people to use? What type of marketing do we have to get out there for writers to be able to use this?
I think I'll take a stab at it, and then if on the marketing, John or Frank have heard some other suggestions. We're estimating, Joe, that it might be as much as 3 hours per route, 3 to 4 hours. You don't have to do it all in one sitting. Gathering the bus stop locations, that latitude and longitude where that stop is on the block, takes the most time. You may decide to do it in the field. You can now do it with smartphones by just traveling the route and hitting click. There's a variety of ways for you to gather that data, but in the range of 3 to 4 hours, especially for a system that you're talking about with a handful of routes. I will take a stab at the marketing. What we have found most often is if we can get the word out to the young crowd, maybe there's a social studies class at the local high school or at the community college, and we start letting that crowd that are on their phones anyway all the time use it, that buzz gets the word out very quickly at a very low cost. So I haven't really seen any large marketing campaigns that are expensive. We might post it to our website so people who come to the website find out about it, but a little bit of word of mouth through the crowd that are mobile seems to work just fine.
Thank you.
This is Frank. To piggyback on what Marcy is saying, I think that if it was me, once my agency had their information on Google Transit or 511, I would probably do a local press release, maybe a local media, and put something on the homepage of your website. Most smartphone users are pretty savvy with Google anyhow, and they're mapping all the time. So just having your information up there will start to generate and connect you to other agencies.
This is John with Idaho. We promote it primarily through the individual transit providers see real value. to just using this tool and having it increase ridership, we also have a very active transit association across the state. So you kind of get it from both directions. You can have the transit association promote the 511, portion of getting to both the 511 traveler information site, but also be able to link people out to Google Transit. Then the providers themselves also do that and see the benefit.
Great. We have another question from actually someone I know, Diane Quigley, with Florida Department of Transportation. I'll expand her question a little bit. She says, how can we make GTFS Builder available to Florida transit agencies? I would probably expand that to any transit agency that's interested. I'm not sure who's the person to answer that question.
This is Frank. I'll take that question. You can get to the GTFS Builder by going to the national RTAP.org website. And in the upper right-hand corner of our website, you would click on Create Cloud Account. And once you've created an account, the GTFS Builder tool, that is the Excel file that Marcy showed you earlier, you can download it. And from that same area, you can access the support center where there are 50-plus videos, and these videos are 2 to 3 minutes apiece. Some may be a little longer, a little shorter. But they walk you through step by step how to use the file, the Excel file that you downloaded, and then how to put your data back into your portal so that Google can come fetch that data. So step 1, create your account for your organization. Step 2, go to the support center, download the checklist. We have our getting started guide, and then just follow the videos along with your checklist. They're right in order, and you should be able to get up and running.
Great. Thank you. I have 2 questions that are kind of similar. We're getting short on time. I'm going to try to get through the final ones. One is, how does Google Maps work with a flag system where there are no real fixed route stops? And then also, are there any examples of demand response systems? I know somewhat different, but obviously they're not the traditional fixed route. Does Google Maps, and does Google Transit, and does your system address those kinds of systems?
I'll take a quick stab. My experience has been that Google is not as much interested in completely random data that exists for a demand responsive service. However, what I have done in one area where we hacked in a series of stop locations and then said, call us, because Google now allows the user to see a warning or an alert that encourages them to call before they get on that bus. Then the driver or the dispatch and the passenger work out the proper location that they're going to get picked up at their door or at a fixed location. And based on that, they can find out that a service is available in their area and that the times are related, but not exactly what's showing. Basically, Google is built for a fixed route system, and we can do some things with the demand responsive if you can bound it a bit and you're willing to not attempt to show the routes on the road, because that would never be possible. So if we'd like to follow up with that, I can create a link to a service area of about a 10 square mile service area that does show a demand responsive service.
Great. I think a lot of people would be interested in that. And then I just have one final question. This is kind of a Google question. Larry Kaminsky, he's saying, asking how quickly does Google respond to requests to add and upload new GTFS information? And how quickly does Google respond to updates or changes to existing GTFS?
Well, Larry, it's a very good question, because for some number of years it was an unknown. But now, once you have a fully validated file and you've used the tools available through Google and through GTFS Builder to validate it, we're now seeing data come into the preview testing environment, which I think is your question, in less than a month, maybe about 3 weeks. I don't want to pin Google to a number, but it's now weeks and days, not months to years. And because they have updated their validation tools A clean data set moves forward. If it's not clean, I can't guarantee it'll move forward. But a very important question because of prior rumors and frustrations that some agencies may have had.
Thank you, Marcy. And I'm going to push the limits by getting one last question in regarding a GTFS. Can you use the GTFS to run other services other than trip planning? They run an organization and are trying to see if there is a software they could provide to a centralized database for the management of all of our data. So is this a mechanism that could help them manage, I guess, data beyond the GTFS data?
We haven't yet been asked, so we appreciate getting pushed a little bit. The reason we are choosing to use Excel is that it is a tool that could allow that type of service to be available. So you can create as many tabs as you wish inside of your Excel spreadsheets. And with GTFS Builder, you'd be linking to the schedule data. And if you wanted to look at your fleet or other components, you could have that elsewhere in that network of this, or the workbook that would be available to you. So it's an excellent question. And if you create one, National RTAP would be thrilled to help host it, I would imagine, once we've tested it a little bit. But the function that you're looking for is a reasonable one. It's just not yet been requested or built.
Great. Well, I want to, I think we've pushed it to 2 extra minutes. You should feel free, anyone else that's on the line that have other questions, please feel free to email us at the Transit GIS Clearinghouse, and we will forward those questions to Frank, Marcy, or John, and hopefully we'll be able to address your questions. Also, as a reminder, maybe I'm stepping on Amber's moderating here, but we are recording this, I believe.
Yes.
And yes, and so we will at some point in time have it available on the National Transit GIS website for others to view if you've missed it or you want to revisit some issues.
Great. And on behalf of the National Center for Transit Research's GIS and Transit Clearinghouse, we'd like to thank the folks who have joined us today from all over the country, and of course our 3 presenters, Frank Condon, the Director of Technology for National RTAP, Marcy Jaffe, Transportation Innovator for MJC, and our moderator and presenter, John Kraus, Mobility Project Manager from Idaho DOT. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope to see you at our next webinar, and please stay tuned for a link to a recording of this webinar. Thank you and have a great day.